Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to another episode of Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and we are once again in Brewton, Alabama. We kind of changed our location this week to be able to accommodate the schedule of our guest, and our guest is Will Ruzic, and he is the manager of Provalis here in Brewton, and, well, they're actually nationwide, but main office is here in Brewton. So, Will, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Certainly glad to be here, and glad you're broadcasting from Brewton today.
Yeah, we are. We last week we had David Jennings on. He was a great guest. You today, and then next week we'll have Coach Jamie Riggs, and so anybody that knows Coach Riggs knows that's going to be a good one too. So,
no doubt. Great guest.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get started. So Provalis, first tell me a little bit about what Provalis is, what you guys do, and then your role there, and then we'll kind of get into leadership and some of the other things we want to talk about.
Yeah, certainly. General manager at Provalis. Titles are just titles. We all have jobs to do, and any given day it can be any number of things, but the actual title is general manager. Provalis is an IT services firm, so we can do anything from minor coding, software development. We do lots of help desk support right now in the market, network operation centers and managing networks for large clients. We're typically Fortune 1000 and above type clients, Chick-fil-A, Ally Bank, some of the names, AT&T, Verizon. Those are all customers of ours. And so we do any number of work for them. And our mission is really transforming communities. So, we are located and headquartered here in Brewton, Alabama. We've committed to 300 jobs here. Currently sitting at about 150 jobs right here in Brewton. We've also opened up in Jasper, Texas, another town very similar to Brewton, and we're at about 120 there. We've been there about a year and a half, and we're just outside Charleston, South Carolina as well. Been there a few months, sitting at about 30 jobs there or so. And, we feel like our mission is to come in and change these communities. I mean, bringing IT jobs to rural America is certainly outside the box. Yeah. And we're excited to be here and excited to find ways we can develop partnerships and make a difference. Yeah,
that's great. And I know that community mindedness dovetails really into what you've done a lot of your career, I know, which is business and economic development. So I think that's great. And we'll get to that. But so let's just start talking about leadership here and get your thoughts on that. I mean, obviously, general manager, you have 300 or 400 folks right now that you're tasked with leading. So give me your definition of leadership, what you think your leadership style is, and what you think makes a good leader. We'll just kind of start there.
Yeah, certainly. I approach leadership and certainly management a little bit different. I do think it's important that a manager clearly lays out goals and expectations and has a set of deliverables that he can communicate to his team. But for me, it is my job to provide the resources necessary for that team to succeed. And so I feel like, you mentioned 300 to 400 people. I feel like on any given day when I walk into my center, I have 300 to 400 bosses. I mean, I never feel like I'm the boss of anyone. And I try to make my employees feel that way to the point of telling me what to do. I mean, I need that communication. Tell me what you need. What do you need to be successful? Whether it's professional or personal, where can we help you, reach your goals? And so in essence, I work for them. And that's how I approach it every single day.
Yeah, well, and servant leadership is something that we've had our guests talk a lot about, and so I think that's great. We asked you to list some qualities that you think a person needs to be a good leader, and so I'll just kind of run through these. You can land on one or two or the ones that you think are most important, but you listed integrity, transparency, passion, and empathy. Certainly probably all have come up before in the podcast over the last couple of years, but everyone always has a unique perspective and view on those. So talk a little bit about that, what you think makes those important.
Yeah, that list could be very lengthy, and I just kind of picked these out as some that are important to me and the way I try to lead or manage. I think integrity is extremely important. If people want to believe in you, they want to believe that you're going to have the integrity to make the right decisions, whether not just for the company, but for them on a personal level. Transparency, I think admitting and being open to, the fact that we're all humans and we may make mistakes, and, just being transparent and open and honest with your employees, I think is extremely important. And then the passion, that's what I really focus on every day is when I come in that door, making sure that they're going to feel my passion. This company and this mission is extremely passionate, as we'll talk, a little bit later, but I need to make sure my employees feel that passion. And I think it's important that passion rubs off on them. And then empathy, I think, is one that's extremely important because every single employee is in a different situation and they're at a different point in their life. and trying to understand that and getting beyond just the business relationship, being able to sit down and have those conversations and being able to put yourself in their shoes and trying to understand what they're going through is extremely important. So empathy is probably one that doesn't get mentioned enough, but it's one that I think is extremely important.
Yeah, right. Well, and so let's kind of circle back to Provalis and that community mindedness. I know that before you took your current role, you were the executive director of Coastal Gateway Regional Economic Alliance, I think it was, and so that was a regional economic development type operation. So you've always been passionate about that, and especially as it pertains to rural areas. You obviously have transitioned into this role, which is also that's at top of mind for you. So what about that is so important? I mean, why do you have such a passion for the rural areas and making sure that communities like Bruton and Jasper, Texas, and the place in South Carolina succeed and grow and thrive?
That's really easy, and that comes down to a personal choice I made 21 years ago. I grew up just outside Dallas, Texas. I met my wife and her family at college, and we didn't date till after college, but when I started coming to Bruton and visiting the area, I absolutely fell in love with it. And she's from here, and I told her when we start having a family, we're going to Bruton to raise it. And of course, being small town, she said, no, I got out of there. I'm not going back.
Right.
Once she got pregnant and we talked it through, she said, okay, I'm ready to go home. Mm-hmm. And so that was 21 years ago that I moved to this community and just fell in love. I made that choice to raise my family in a rural setting. And so since then, I have truly been fighting for rural life. It's just been a passion just because it's the choice I made for my family. And there were always instances, and I'm sure you've done the same thing, when you look back and say, was that the right choice? Yeah. You've got friends that are in these metro areas and their careers are doing different things than yours have been. Mm-hmm. So it's been difficult here. But, now as the dust is kind of settling, you and I are about in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Our families are moving on with their life. Right. And they look back and they say, Dad, just thank you for my childhood. Thank you for everything. And you realize all those decisions and any regrets you thought you may have gone out the window. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely the right choice. And so I've been fighting for that rural life. We get overlooked and we get left behind in a lot of the true economic development. So we have really got to have a big voice out here. And so it's been a passion of mine to fight for rural.
So Provalis, they obviously made the decision to come and locate their headquarters in Bruton. What was the genesis behind that decision? I mean, you're right. You look at places like Birmingham, Nashville, Atlanta. I mean, smaller metropolitan areas around us. And why Bruton? What made them make that decision?
So, interestingly enough, I talk about this all the time, but flower baskets were a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
and I'll get to that. But at a company level, they made the decision to reshore these jobs. As you can imagine, a lot of what we do goes overseas, India, Indonesia, China. So they said, we're going to bring those jobs back, but we're not only going to bring them back, we're not going to put them in Atlanta where they're just another IT job, or Dallas. We're going to go to the rural areas because we know out in the rural areas there is good work ethic, there are good people out there, there is aptitude out there. So we just have to bring the training. And of course, that was the key, and that's the key to our success is it's pretty intensive training, but we're taking folks who've been cashiers or been in retail or been at the factory, and we're bringing them into the IT space. So we have to have that training. But the thought was we can train those folks and we can put them to work and we can create career pathways in the IT space in the rural area. And then from there, if we can have 100, 200, 300 people, what kind of impact can we have on that community? Where can we create partnerships? Where can we get into the schools and start bringing the IT into the schools at an earlier age? What other entities in the community can we partner with and start making a real difference? And that's kind of where we are in Bruton. We're at 3+ years. So we're starting to really see some successes in our partnerships we've developed in the community. But we were in a fight for this project. And of course, I was on the other side of the table. I helped recruit this company to Bruton. But literally, when they came to Bruton, and like any company, they're going to come see your community when you're not expecting it.
Right.
So, when we've invited a company into our community, we know that we've gone out and picked up the trash. We may or may not stage somebody in the park having a picnic, or there are things you do when you bring people into your community. Well, they know that.
Right.
So they come see you when you're not expecting it. They want to come through your community and say, okay, what's this look like on a normal day? And when they came into Bruton, they saw the hanging flower baskets. They said, as silly as that is, that's a community that takes pride and they're investing in themselves. The sidewalks were clean. The parks were mowed, and we had parks. We had 5 or 6 parks here that people say, why do we have so many parks? Well, that's a big deal. When you're a company looking at a small town, they say, this is important to them. Yeah. Way of life is important to this community, and they're investing in it. And then you get into the schools, and we've got tremendous public schools in this community, and healthcare and some of the other things that come along with economic development. But it truly is some of that simple surface stuff.
Yeah.
Cleaning your sidewalks and hanging flower baskets made a tremendous difference.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard before, two things that people always mention, and maybe, I think still so, but the YMCA and the library. I mean, are two things, among other things that you just mentioned, but those are two things that I think really our town can be proud of, that most towns our size just don't have the facilities that we have in the YMCA complex and also the public library.
On every tour I ever did, YMCA is tremendous. And a lot of things will sell themselves, and a lot of things they can do research online and see where our schools are ranked and where our healthcare is ranked. But till you go see our YMCA and you say, I cannot believe this is in a small town and this is available. And then you tell them how much it is a month, and they say, well, I pay 3 times that for less, and where I'm from. And so, it's absolutely what we have here is tremendous.
Yeah, that's great. You talked a lot about your team members and kind of that servant leadership. So when you're looking for a team member to come along beside you at Provalis, what do you look for? What are some qualities in a team member that you think are important and maybe even non-negotiable?
I think, again, some of the things I mentioned, but I think it's a belief in what we do, and we try to find that passion. There are so many things that we can teach, and I'm an example of that. I was not in IT before I came into this career, and I was very transparent with everybody that talked to me at Provalis. I said, I am not your IT. I get a headache when I send an email, and they said, look, we can teach IT, and there are certain things we can teach. What we're looking for is that passion and that desire to help us grow in rural areas. So, it's really some of those type things that we're looking for when we bring a team member on. A lot of things we can just teach, but can you take somebody and lead them and help them improve their life? And do you have a passion for doing that? Can you take, 100 people and help them get to that next level and help them understand what a career looks like, and down to the point of helping them work their own personal budget, things like that we have to live with and deal with in a rural area. And so that, that's what we look for.
So along those same lines, when you get those team members into your organization and you train them, I mean, the mission of Provalis, and one of the big ones is transforming both the people who work there and giving them another skill that they did not have before, but also transforming the community. So talk about that. When you look 5 years down the road, what do you hope Provalis has done to transform Bruton? I mean, obviously the things that can be seen, the building that's going up downtown will be obvious signs, but beyond that, what are some things that you hope to have accomplished maybe in 3-5 years when you look back and see how you guys have helped transform this community?
Sure. Yeah. The building obviously is going to be beautiful. It's 50,000 square feet, state of the art, sitting in the heart of downtown, but it is simply just a vehicle, to reach some of the goals we want to reach. But the idea is to have true working partnerships with the local high schools. Okay. And working with those kids coming out. Right now, we've got a 4-week training program that we put our candidates through. And so we can take somebody from 0 to 60 in 4 weeks, and we can get them ready for production. Now, we continue training once they hit the floor. But our local community college, with our curriculum, has agreed to accredit that, what we call a boot camp. Okay. So if you just graduate our boot camp, you get 6 college credit hours now. And so we've now created a scholarship program inside Provalis. We also have scholarships available at the local community college. So all of that we want to use to leverage a pathway to not only come to work for us, but to continue your education. And so that's where we want to create that pipeline coming out of the high schools, saying, look, we can get you into IT. You can do it right here, but we also want to make sure you're following your education. And so we can get them into school. We can get it paid for. They can get IT certifications along the way. So it's going to take some work. Now, obviously, COVID has put a damper on that, because that takes us getting into that high school and developing those partnerships. So a lot of this is, once we get through COVID, we hope we can pick back up where we left off. But those are the types of partnerships we want to make sure we have, and that's where we're starting to change lives and getting people into careers. And listen, if they come to us, they work 2 years, they get their degree, they get a couple certifications, and we've had this happen, and they leave us and they go to a big city, to a bigger IT firm. Well, you know what? We've done our job. Yeah. We've given you that hand up. We didn't hand you out anything. We've given you that hand up to improve your life. And the good thing is, we're going to be here. If you want to come back home, we're still going to be here. And of course, that's important for us, is for kids that want to come back to this area, or young adults, have those opportunities. And so that's, again, what we're trying to create, ways to get our young folks back into this community. And that's extremely important. our outreach programs. We continue to support the donation-only restaurant here, which, I'm sure you know all about, and
right.
your listeners probably do too if they have read some about Carlisa and what she does in the community. We continually support that. We send people over to help serve meals. We financially support them. Our outreach is important. We've also started a youth coding camp. So we've partnered with Marcus Hall here in the community, and every third Saturday we meet over at the Fisher Center, which is the old middle school, and we work with anywhere from 20 to 50 to 60 kids sometimes, and we introduce them to coding, and we introduce them to some of the elementary software development skills and getting them some of the language and just really opening their mind, because the sooner we can get their mind opened as to what's available in IT, the better. And so really continuing to develop those partnerships and finding opportunities like that in the community, that's where we're going to make a difference.
It really, just listening to you talk, it's amazing that it sounds like you guys have built a business model that's based on the success of your individual team members drives the success of the business as a whole and the community it's in. I mean, that's different from a Chick-fil-A or from a huge corporation where you just kind of plug people in and they do their thing and really there's really no long-term impact on anything other than the fact that they come and punch a clock and get their paycheck and go home.
That's exactly where we want to be. And like any corporation, we could hand out a little money and support some charities, but we want to figure out how we can really make a difference. And we think that there are better ways to do that. And that's where when we have 100, 200, 300 people, that's where we're going to be able to have those impacts. And each of our people, when they come in the door, they understand our mission. And we encourage them to get involved right out of the gate and find their passion.
Yeah.
We're really, really focusing on lifestyle and living a much better, healthier lifestyle, which is one thing that's always concerned me, living in a rural area, and the availability of healthy foods. And so that's an area we're focusing on, and we're creating committees within our organization to help promote that outside the organization as well. But yes, to answer your question, we want to be more than just a job in the community.
That's great. I mean, the impact you guys are having on individuals is significant, I think. So speaking of impacts, I mean, look back and give me a person or two that you can point to that maybe was either a mentor or someone that just had a really, that was really impactful on your life and kind of where you are today.
Yep. So you'll know this person that had such an immediate impact. And the more I think about it, the more I was amazed at the impact he had. And it was later on in my career. I met several folks early in my career who gave me really good advice. And a lot of that was focusing on family, not letting career get ahead of, in your priorities. And so, again, that goes back to living that rural lifestyle. I wanted my family to be first. But when I went to Coastal Gateway and I met Dr. John Johnson, had a tremendous impact in the way he did business and the way he communicated and just a lot of the things he did. And really what he did when he brought me into economic development was helping me understand the impact of working together. Dr. Johnson knew every entity in this state, knew what assets they had, knew how to connect those dots. And that's really what this is all about, especially on the economic development side, is connecting those dots. But as we want to make impacts in our communities, we've got to understand how we connect those dots too, because together we're going to have a much bigger impact than trying to work in our own silos. So Dr. Johnson was a huge impact to me.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I know him personally, and you're right. Economic development has always been kind of this esoteric thing to me. Where it's kind of, I don't really know how do you really know if you're having success? But he did a really good job of making that tangible and allowing you to see those successes and communicating that to the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you ask 10 people the definition of economic development, you're going to get 10 different answers. So, it's never been something you can just measure tangibly. But, he did a tremendous job. And that's where I really got that taste of seeing true impact. When we're building these jobs in these other communities, we represented 5 counties in that organization. But watching cow pastures turn into manufacturing and new trucks in the parking lot, knowing they're going home to families that are being fed, and just seeing what a difference you can have was truly motivational for me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. Are you a big reader? Do you read a lot, or do you have any podcasts that you listen to? I'm asking because I just always like to give the listeners, if we can, a resource or two, if they can go out there and say, yeah, this book had an impact on me, or I like this author or this podcast. Or do you have time for that kind of stuff?
A little bit. A podcast is more of what I used to read some, but podcast fits my lifestyle a little better now, I should say. Yeah. Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, I found extremely interesting. It just came out, but it's kind of talks a little bit about his life. And and how he approaches life. And I thought that was pretty interesting. The other one that I've listened to twice now, once while I just completed a ultra marathon last weekend running 50 miles, I listened to this book again, David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me.
Okay.
So David is he went through Navy SEAL, he went through Army Ranger School. He came from nothing to just put it all on the line, and now he's an ultra athlete and really a motivational speaker. But those kind of stories motivate me, and he's got that true servant leadership, giving back.
Yeah, that slipped my mind, but I did see on social media that you completed this ultra marathon. You just turned 50, is that right?
That's right. I ran 50 miles.
50 miles for turning 50. How does that even work? I mean, I know you started in the daytime and it was night when you finished. You had your backpack with your water thing on there and whatever.
Actually, I started in the dark too. It was just
dark.
breaking day. So my first few miles were with my headlamp, and then I was able to take it off, and it was a 14-hour process. I trained a good bit for it, but I trained in Bruton, which is flat. Yeah. And so we actually were in the woods, and it was a true trail run. It was up and down creek banks and through lots of rooted areas, lots of deep sand. And so that wore me down pretty quick. But I turned 50, and unfortunately 50 was a nice round number, and that's how many miles the race was. So it was one of those things I signed up for, and then I thought, what have I just done? But it does kind of go back to my leadership style and something I try to encourage folks that I interact with on a daily basis, and it's all about being careful of comfort zones. True growth lies outside of that comfort zone. And we go through this day-to-day process, and we find ourselves getting comfortable. Yeah. And I think that's natural for humans. I'm comfortable. I'm here. This is where I want to be. But what happens is your life begins to stagnate. And so I try to put myself in positions, healthy sometimes, but put myself in positions where I can fail. Yeah. And see if I can rise to that occasion. And so, I knew in 50 miles, after 5 miles, I'm going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And so my mind is going to start telling me, you can't do this. This quitting would be easier. You get to 20 miles, 30 miles. Well, that's a great accomplishment. Let's stop right here. And so I wanted that battle. I wanted to fight my own mind telling me to quit. And I wanted to see if I could dig deep enough and fight through the pain. And again, it's all about growth and being outside that comfort zone for me.
Love that. That's great. All right, well, let's talk about your 3 daughters real quick, Grace Steely and Jennings Ruzic. They're beautiful girls, and my son Garrett graduated with Steely, and Grace is a little bit older, and Jennings is a little bit younger than my youngest, or than my daughter. But when they look back on Dad's life, when they have their own children, what do you want them to think and remember and say about Will Ruzic as far as the kind of impact that you've had on their life and what you've left them with?
I hope that they understand some of the struggles, that I think couples and families go through are very normal, but I hope we sheltered some of that from them. I hope they weren't aware of some of the concerns we always had. But I hope they'll understand the importance of just continuing to show up. Just keep showing up. No matter what happens, just keep showing up. And I hope that they'll see that that's what, we did as we were growing up. And if we faced any issues, listen, we just kept showing up, just fighting through it, kept showing up. And then when you get to the other side of that, whatever you may be going through, and understanding and looking back and saying, okay, what did I learn from that? Again, as part of that growth and figuring out, what lessons can I take from that and where can I apply them further down the road? But if anything, I hope they know the importance of persistence and just keep showing up every day.
That's a great lesson. Appreciate that. Well, if folks want to learn more about Provalis and what you guys do, I know that we'll have the website linked down in the show notes, but do you have a specific place they can go if they're wanting to inquire about a job, or where would folks go to learn more about
absolutely. That? Provalis.com, and you can see a little bit about us there and a little bit about our mission there. There is to apply for a job. There are links there you can click, and it'll take you right where you need to be and give you some information. Somebody will reach out to you. I will tell you, we're hiring every day. We are a growing company. I need 40 people right now in Bruton, Alabama, and about the same in Texas. And so we've created some pent-up demand here with COVID, and our clients are back moving, and we're excited about a big 2021. So, Provalis.com, and it'll get you everywhere you need to be.
Great. Thanks. All right, Will, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.